Hi guys, welcome to Informer. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe. I hope you will enjoy today's story. My kids and I saw my wife kissing someone else in public. I talked to them about it and then stopped talking to my wife. I was really hurt because I don't understand why people cheat. My wife cheated on me 25 years ago and it really hurt me. I saw some posts from other guys who went through the same thing, and it made me want to share my story, even though I don't really need advice or support anymore. I used to think I had everything because of my wife, Katie. We grew up together and spent a lot of time together since we were kids. We were always close, and it felt natural to be with each other. When we were kids, we liked to meet up and kiss each other before going home for the night. It was never stated, but I didn't kiss the other girls. She only kissed me. Our transition to high school began horribly for me. I have to add, at this point, that Katie was stunning, like upper first percentile gorgeous. I never saw her equal. All the boys noticed her. The unwritten rules of elementary school did not apply here, and soon all the boys in the school vied for her attention. They staked out her locker, jostled with one another to see her between classes and at lunch. We were always intercepted on the way to school by boys and cars. I was devastated. How could a grade 9 boy have any chance against bigger, stronger, richer boys who had cars and money? My love of school vanished. I became amorous, didn't study, didn't walk her to school. In fact, I told my mom that I wanted to quit. Katie's mom saved the day by phoning my mom to ask if I was okay. I hadn't been over for a long time, and Katie was worried about what was going on. She invited me over next evening, and I and Katie sat down and talked. When I explained to myself, Katie assured me that as far as she was concerned, I was, and always will be, her boyfriend. My love of life returned. Men kept bothering her, even though she didn't want their attention. I gave her a ring as a promise that we'd be together, and she said yes. We started thinking about our jobs. She wanted to work in a dentist's office, and I chose to study different subjects at college. We stayed with our parents to save money, and her parents offered us a place to stay, which we liked. We enjoyed driving out to the countryside at night to get away from the city. We'd park the car, spread out a sleeping bag, put some pillows on the hood and windshield, and cover ourselves with a blanket. We'd watch the stars, talk, and make wishes before moving to the back seat. We had been sexually active since the summer before. This time we fell asleep and didn't wake up before morning. Our parents were up making breakfast when we arrived, so I prepared myself for a scene. Instead, Katie's mom calmly asked us to sit down and have breakfast. I still waited for the shoe to drop. They asked where we had been, and I thought that at 19 I was old enough to tell them the truth, so it was time to man up. They both smiled, and her dad told us that their main concern was our safety. So instead of using the back seat, I would be welcome to sleep with her in her bedroom. This was before cell phones, by the way, so parents did not know where their kids were and couldn't find out. Her mom told me that it had been clear for a long time that we loved one another and were inseparable, and her dad told me that he was proud that his daughter had found such a fine young man. Her sex was always fantastic. We spent hours discovering our bodies and how to pleasure one another. I was the king of the world. For brevity, I would speed things up, but I wish I could go on. The length I went to show her how much I loved her, and the thousands of wonderful things we did as a couple might make it easier for readers to relate to the completeness of my destruction when it came. She finished her course and quickly got a job. We took an apartment together after my 3rd year. I had made the decision, with her input, to go into teaching. I had the capability to do anything else, but teaching afforded us more time together. More time with her was something money could not buy. After my 4th year, I proposed, and we set a date for the early summer after I complicated. We stayed in our apartment for 1 more year, and in the year following, I had landed a job. We bought a house in which we planned to live forever. We planned on having children after I had been given a permanent contract. At 28, we began our family. During our son, David, I was so proud of Katie and David. I think I acted as if Katie was the first woman in the world to give birth. It was wonderful and terrifying. I had prepared for the birth, but the violence of it shocked me. I relied on the two mothers for advice, and the three women were constantly amused with my playing mother's hand. What is she feeling? What does she need? What should I do? When can we be close again? The birth made me feel even closer to Katie. I had often heard that when children are born, they become the most important thing to their parents, more important than their partners. But not for me. Katie was a miracle, a wonder. She had always been my best friend, lover, soulmate, and more. Now she was my whole world. I couldn't imagine life without her. Now, sometimes in the deadness inside my heart, I can almost conjure these feelings. I felt even greater pride when Hannah arrived after David, 3 years later, to be exact. These employers were very generous to their employees. Every second year, they would give the hygienists, technicians, receptionists, etc. a 5-day-long weekend. The girls would make all the plans, and the practice would pay all the costs. One year, once the kids were older, David, 10 and 7, I had made plans to take the kids somewhere special, instead of the usual trip to one of the other grandparents. Instead, we were going to a city far away with a famous mall that featured a huge water park, indoor amusements, submarine ride, and so on. It was very exciting for all three of us. Once it was time, I drove my love to the airport where she was to meet up with the others, and we set off. I would just cut to the chase here. On the second day, the kids and I were wading toward the wave pool when we saw something that stopped my heart. Outside the park, but on their way there, were Katie and someone I didn't know, walking hand in hand. In this place, countless people from everywhere go there, and as I stated up front, with her looks, anyone who had ever seen her would recognize her immediately. "There's Mommy," declared Hannah. The tears were already flowing when Davy asked. He wanted me to assure him, I guess. The cheating couple found a pair of reclining beach chairs, and before sitting down, exchanged a long, passionate kiss, hands massaging the other's butts. Davy asked me again, "Dad?" But I was just gasping and couldn't form sounds. As the cheaters separated and sat down, Hannah began running toward Katie, calling Mommy, Mommy. As she recognized Hannah, Katie was in full panic, skating the crowd until she finally saw us. I began walking toward them, and she buried her face into the bath towels she had brought. I stopped in front of the affair partner and asked Hannah to come to me. "So, I want to introduce you to the children whose family you just destroyed. I hope their faces haunt you for the rest of your miserable life." They met my words with a crap-eating grin, long practiced, and went and sat a few chairs further away without uttering a sound. I told the kids to stay with their mom and hightailed it to her room. I changed as quickly as I could, leaving most of my stuff and all the kids. At reception, I explained that Katie would eventually want to know where I was, and that it was okay to tell her I had left, and to let her into the room to get the kids' things. I'm not proud of this, but I thought having 2 kids might add some excitement to their lives. Then I started a long, lonely 8-hour drive home. I had to stop many times because I was crying too hard to keep driving. When I got to our house, I unplugged the phone. I sat down and wrote each of the kids a long letter and put them on their pillows. I packed a hockey bag with random clothes and things I thought I might need. I had more romantic plans for the bathtub, but I filled it with water and poured in a lot of bleach. Then I gathered every wedding picture or photo of us together, all the photo albums from before we had kids, and all the lingerie and sexy things I had given her, including our wedding certificate. Before I left, I set up the house for the romantic reception I had planned. The week before, I bought 200 thick white candles of different heights and asked 2 of Katie's colleagues to get me the oils and lotions she might like. I set up the candles starting at the entrance, leading to the bathroom. The bathroom was filled with candles, and I placed the bath oils and lotions near the tub. I put 2 new large hotel-grade white bath towels on the toilet seat, and on top of them, I placed the lingerie and other sexy things I had bought for the night. But I had cut them up. The kids were supposed to stay with Grandpa and Grandma, and our neighbor and his wife were supposed to light the candles after I called them from the airport. I also filled our bedroom with candles, turned down her side of the bed, and sprinkled rose petals from 24 roses onto the sheets. It was to be the homecoming of all time. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen table, scooped a few photos of the kids, and left forever. I was in no condition to see anyone, so I booked into a cheap motel to wait for Tuesday. Long week to remember. I did phone my principal and explained that he needed to find a sub because I would not be in the near term. Tuesday morning, I made an appointment with a door lawyer and gave him the terms. I would take out half the money in our checking or savings account, whichever was most, but relinquished claim to everything else. I asked for visiting rights during holiday periods. I would never see Katie face to face. All communication was through the lawyer, who was not allowed to disclose my whereabouts to anyone. I headed toward a part of the country where there was a housing boom to find some kind of basic job to pay the bills. I never thought about teaching again. My lawyer did a great job keeping business matters focused and never revealed where I was. He even managed the exchange of the children. I could talk more about how I handled things with the kids and my in-laws, but I want to get back to my main point. Was the affair worth it? It destroyed me. It was like a light bulb burning out. My spirit, love of life, and self-respect were gone. I lost my confidence, and it never came back. Even now, many years later, I can't trust women. I can't let myself be vulnerable. Friends try to set me up, but I always refuse. My desire didn't survive the affair anyway. I missed out on much of my kids' lives. 2 weeks in the summer isn't much. Was it worth it? Was it just a mistake? I feel like I can't answer anything anymore. But for God's sake, girls, think about what you are doing before you enter into your little fling. Does your husband or boyfriend deserve this? The op has some responses. I appreciate the interest in my post, regardless of it being supportive or condemnatory. As I wrote, though, it is an account of what I did, of what I was capable of at the time, and certainly not a guidebook on how to react. I have replayed that moment in my head countless times, and I still don't know if I could have done better. A better man might have, but not me. Mr. Wellman 81, for example, is a hard marker, but I accept his words. I don't think he understood my being completely broken. I didn't choose to cave in, but like the burned out element of light bulb, I was no longer there. But no matter. I'm sorry that this has taken time, but depression has the upper hand with me now, and just getting up is a chore. I do want to address a couple more common comments. As people have taken the time to write, I feel they deserve the courtesy of a reply. Dealing with the kids was relatively easy. Once I realized that I would have to make a major concession. I had gotten Christmas, Easter, and 3 weeks in the summer. The kids, though, wanted to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house for Christmas and Easter, and I readily saw the benefit to them. So through my attorney, I traded those in exchange for another week in the summer. We did not fight over the kids. In summer, one of my sisters or my parents would bring them out, and I would get them into swimming lessons. As I only had 2-week holidays then, I am very grateful for the family support. Calling the kids on the weekend at my parents' was normal, but clearly not the same as being there. Once they got older and could drive, I left them aside for themselves what they wanted to do. Usually they came, unless the sport had gotten away. I was able to get David well-paying summer jobs, so he was happy to come out after grades 10, 11, and 12 for the whole summer. They came out on their own approximately every second Christmas. I didn't keep a ledger. Hannah and I eventually developed a strong bond because she wanted to understand my hurt and how it damaged me. I think it is pretty simple to sympathize with a wounded person, but I think she has grasped it and has forgiven me for disappearing. She focused on me, not the marriage, not the family, not changing things. There was no talk of mother until the kids were older. I will write one more post, but I am going to have to wean myself off the forum. I had hoped that this might make me feel better, and at first it did feel good just to throw the story out to the winds. Recently, though, I have read some stories that have deeply moved me, and I don't need help being sad. One about a man whose wife had cheated, and whose 3 daughters hid the affair from him. Several have asked. I am 65 now, and was 38 at the time. Let's see some relevant comments. Dual Jobs says, "That's the worst story I've heard in the last 6 months on this sub. I want to say you should have beaten that guy up. But you were a complete wreck emotionally and caught off guard. How did you manage to stay in contact with your kids, even if only rarely?" Wellman81 says, "Oh man, my heart breaks for what you went through. I commend you for not staying with your ex-wife and for not doing the pick-me dance. When you say you lost your self-respect on D-Day, I think you actually kept it by not begging a heartless cheater to stay. I'm sure if you had stuck around, Katie would have come back, begging for forgiveness, saying she's sorry and that the affair meant nothing, promising never to cheat again and all that. Forget that. Good for you for getting such a vile person out of your life. However, I will say that your lowest moment was alienating yourself from your children, who needed you during the worst time of their lives. You were a coward in the sense of more or less abandoning your children. And now you're going to have to live with the fact that you missed them growing up. And most of all, their lifelong anger and resentment towards you for it. You could have easily been the best co-parenting dad for them, and never missed a thing in their lives. But instead, you ran away with your tail tucked between your legs. That's not something I could live with. But if you can, then I guess that's your cross to bear. So here you are, a shell of a man tainted of life because of what? A cheating floozy. You are choosing to be miserable and letting the past dictate your future. You created this traumatic prison in your own, instead of rising from the ashes and showing your ex-wife what a real man is made of. I totally get not wanting to date, much less to get remarried. But dude, please get some professional help and stop letting these bad feelings control your life. By living in misery and heartache, you're letting your ex-wife and the guy she was with win." Coppercoil says, "I was with you until you abandoned your children with a cheating wife and a stranger, just so you could go home and set up a guilt trip revenge thing. How am I supposed to feel sorry for someone who walked out on his children's lives, except for seeing them twice a year on holidays? She's awful for cheating and ruining your marriage, but you're also at fault. Your children deserve better from both of you." Thanks for watching. Please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe.